Welcome to the presentation on Aristotle, an influential thinker as presented by Kevin Warnecke. Many consider Aristotle as one, if not the most important thinkers in Western thought. Born in 384 BC in Stagria in northern Greece, dying at the age of 62. He was a scientist, a philosopher, who supported the approach of realism. His works on politics, logic, physics, metaphysics, ethics, and biology are famous. Aristotle had several notable ideas, including formulas on logic, reason, passion, biology, and the goal mean relating to virtues that we will delve into later. Coincidentally, he was a student of Plato, another great thinker, albeit with an alternative view through the approach of idealism. Aristotle is known as the first teacher in Arabic philosophy and the philosopher in the Western world. Although his influence over people are too numerous to mention, two key people are Alexander the Great, who he tutored, and St. Thomas Aquinas, for whom he gave the framework for who might be considered a good person, that Aquinas followed up with as far as why one should be considered a good person. Aristotle held key philosophical positions and made significant intellectual contributions over his lifetime. The political approach of realism, or what is real, was significant at the time, as it countered his teacher Plato, who embraced the approach of idealism. Aristotle went on to explain the theories of logic by use of deductive reasoning and empirical research. He encouraged others to go out in the sun and do the experimenting and testing firsthand, versus simply hitting the easy button by taking the words and the works of others as truths. He plotted out the concept of scientific method through his process of empirical research, scribed ethical concepts, and conducted biology tests and studies. According to Aristotle, the good life philosophical question was political in nature. He equates the good life into happiness. He splits happiness into two parts: intellectual virtues and virtues of character. Intellectual virtues are things like knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. He believes intellectual virtues develop through study, practice, contemplation, learning, and experience. Conversely, virtues of character, or character habits, develop through socialization and choices. Aristotle introduces golden mean concept, which is aiming for the middle between excess and deficiency. He felt the virtues were best if lived in a moderate and voluntary way. Aristotle believes the good life philosophy of happiness, or eudaimonia, succeeds only if one knows what is right, wants to do right, and does what is right. In return, they pleasure from their good behavior. However, improvements must be continuous and should contemplate social obligations for those who are disadvantaged. Aristotle's living well precepts tie directly to his good life philosophy. He believes that the search for good is one assumed of the highest good that has three specific characteristics. It is desirable for itself, it is not desirable for the sake of some other good, and all other goods are desirable for its sake. To further this point, Aristotle explains that happiness, or eudaimonia, and living well signal such an end. Therefore, he claims to be eudaimonia is to be living in a way favored by God. Living well also requires doing something with purpose, not just maintaining a certain state or condition. One must possess friends, wealth, and power. Aristotle explains that happiness alone is not a virtue, but rather it is a virtuous activity. Therefore, we must have parents and a community to help us become virtuous, and we must take ownership for the responsibility of acquiring and exercising the virtues. Aristotle's philosophy on God was one through contemplation and thought. He argued that God indeed exists, but there is only one true God, and God is perfect. He uses the concept of metaphysics to describe what is real, which ties back to his realism approach. His metaphysics concept describes the heavens to be in constant motion. This constant moving, eternal entity requires a presence of an unmoved mover. The unmoved mover exists for moving the first mover, or the heavens. Another force cannot move the unmoved mover. The unmoved mover is the one true God. God is separate or distinct from the natural world. Aristotle explains that one can find happiness without God in their life, but without the grace of God, one will always lack fulfillment. I chose Aristotle for my influential thinker presentation because we both align on his realism approach, his view of God as singular and perfect, and his good life philosophy. A person who knows what is right, wants to do right, and ultimately does what is right will receive pleasure from their good behavior. I know this tactic is still sound today, as it is how I attempt to live my life and teach my children to live theirs forever. I truly hope you have enjoyed my work. Blessings.